Hello, welcome to Beaver Tracks, a damn good podcast where we bring you inside the world of OSU and share a behind the scenes look at Beaver Nation. I'm Craig Bronner, Assistant Director of Admissions at OSU Cascades.
And I'm Allie Carter, Regional Admissions Advisor for Southern California. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, a new academic year on our campus means a new season of Beaver Tracks. And this season, you can expect interviews with OSU faculty, staff, and students, as well as segments where we dive further into the admissions process, student experience, OSU history, and more. And along with our audio podcast, we will also be releasing a new video version of the podcast. So lots of exciting changes for sure. And one of the most exciting changes is our new co-host, Allie Carter. Allie, welcome to the pod. Could you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. Thanks, Craig. Hi, everyone. My name is Allie Carter. I am one of the Southern California Regional Admissions Advisors for Oregon State. I work with students from San Diego, Orange County, and the Inland Empire here in Southern California. I've been at OSU since February of last year, so it's been almost a year, which is really exciting. Prior to my time at Oregon State, I was actually at San Diego State University, where I worked in the College of Education, and that's also where I got my master's degree.
That's awesome. So, Allie, what got you involved in higher education?
Yeah. So when I was in college, I think as a lot of us were, I was a university ambassador. So I gave tours, worked with prospective students and families, and realized that it was really fun to be part of that process at such an important time in students' lives when they're getting excited for college, trying to figure out where they want to spend the next 4 years, being able to work with parents and kind of talk about some of their, questions and concerns and maybe fears that they had about sending their students off to college. So I really enjoyed that. I started working at San Diego State originally in fundraising. And then when I got my master's degree in student affairs, I switched over to the student facing side of things. I was working in admissions as a graduate admissions advisor, so working with students who wanted to get their teaching credential. And then when I came to Oregon State, I had the opportunity to switch back to the undergrad side to work with students and families. And I think this is definitely where I want to be. It's really, really fun.
Well, we're glad to have you. What brought you to OSU? How did you find out about Oregon State University and this job?
Yeah. So I actually had a friend that I used to work with at San Diego State who'd moved up to Corvallis and started a job at Oregon State. We kept in touch, and she was always telling me how wonderful Oregon was, how much she really loved OSU and her position. And then the opportunity came up where she heard that they were hiring for someone in Southern California. So, she sent over that job link, and I did some research and sounded like it would be a really good fit for my skills and for my experience. And so I'm grateful that we kept in touch. And now I have a really, really wonderful team of people to work with.
And since joining the team here at OSU and working with the campus, what's been one of your favorite things that you've experienced so far?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think probably having the opportunity to visit campus over the summer. We actually got to see both OSU Cascades and our main campus in Corvallis during our summer team training, and actually getting to meet everyone in person was really fun because since February we had only been on Zoom, and so it was really neat to actually see everyone in person. And one of the interesting things I found was that you really don't know how tall people are until you meet them off of Zoom. But just getting to see the campus, getting to take an actual campus tour, getting to really get to know the campus that we're advising for, so I can kind of bring Oregon back to Southern California to share it with our students.
I'm laughing because I think one of the first things you said to me when we finally met in person was you're much taller than I expected.
Yeah, you are tall.
Yes, very tall, very tall. And I like to say, some people, if they're shorter, they're like, well, I'm so short. But I'm like, oh, but you have a tall personality.
I like that.
So, Allie, you're a regional admissions advisor. Can you kind of tell our listeners what that means for you and your role?
Yeah, definitely. So, part of the year, I'm working from home, doing things like reading applications, occasionally doing events and things like that, working on some special projects. And then in the fall, that's what we consider our travel season. So end of August through the beginning of November. I'm out on the road. So I start down here in San Diego. And then travel to places like Orange County and Riverside and San Bernardino, kind of all across Southern California, right up until you hit LA. And that's where it transitions over to our other Southern California admissions advisor, Grace. So during that travel season, we're going to high schools throughout the day. We're going to college fairs, other special events that are happening, working on recruiting students from this area, talking with parents, families, things like that, talking with high school counselors. So it's really fun. We get to see a lot of our territory during those couple of months. And then after that, kind of in November through February or so, kind of the season we're in right now is what we call reading season. So we're reading applications, we're planning for spring events and college fairs and all of that fun stuff. So we have kind of a cycle that we go through every year. So working in the territory that I manage is really great. It's really nice to be able to support the students from the community that I live in.
And I would imagine being a regional advisor that you make a lot of relationships with like the high school counselors that you're working with.
Yeah, definitely. It's fun to kind of meet them at the beginning of the year, see counselors that you know already, meet counselors that you haven't gotten the chance to talk to before, and then throughout the year, we always end up seeing each other again, sometimes at college fairs and other events. And so it's really nice to be able to build that relationship, to know exactly who your point of contact is, and who's supporting the students at the schools that you're working with.
Yeah, with those students that you're meeting, especially in the California, Los Angeles area, what do you find that they're excited about when you're talking about Oregon State University or Oregon State University Cascades?
That's a good question. I think one of the things that students are looking for is a place that's close to home, but it's not too close to home.
Mhm.
Oregon's just one state away, so they can get out and see some new things, experience some new things, but it's not too far. It's not like going to college in Boston or something like that. And I think sometimes they're also looking for weather that's a little bit different. In Southern California, we don't really get all four seasons. We get kind of two seasons. We get warm and warmer. So it's nice for students to be able to experience things like changing leaves in the fall, experience some snow in the winter. But again, it's not like going to college on the East Coast where there's tons of snow. They're going to have to like dig out their cars to try to get to class and things like that. So I think they're looking for, again, something that's close to home, something that's similar to home, but a little bit different.
Are there some programs or majors that you think that they're really excited about out there?
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of students from Southern California really interested in our engineering programs. We do have 16 of those to choose from. So it's really cool that they have so many different opportunities to choose from. There are a lot of schools here in Southern California that have what we call impacted programs, which means that there are more students interested in those majors or in those colleges than there's room to accommodate. So students are sometimes looking outside of Southern California for really strong engineering programs. And so that's definitely one of the things that we can bring to them. I have talked with a lot of students who are excited about OSU Cascades, being able to actually be in the mountains, be so close to Mount Bachelor. We definitely have some ski and snowboard fans down here. So students getting to experience those kinds of things. Some of the really cool majors at Cascades, like outdoor products, I think is really exciting for students. Again, some of that engineering component, but also that outdoor component. So I think students can experience a lot of really cool things at our campuses.
Yeah, and then exploratory studies as well is a great opportunity for students to, like, they know
Definitely.
they want to be at Oregon State University, but they're not exactly sure. I'm always recommending exploratory studies. I think those are great
Absolutely.
options.
Yeah, exploratory studies is a really great option because I think that there's a lot of pressure on students to know exactly what they want to do coming out of high school. And that's tough. Students change their majors all the time because, when you're 17 and graduating high school, you might not know what you want to do for the next 4 years or the next 10 or 20 years. So I think it's really cool that we have a program where students can explore all of those different options, see what kinds of majors might be a good fit, what kinds of programs and studies that they feel that they're really good at, and maybe find something new that they didn't know they liked.
Definitely. And I also think for both of our campuses, the career development opportunities and the collaboration that they can have there, especially with the supportive faculty, is just phenomenal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love how supportive everyone on campus is, whether it's admissions, it's, career advising, academic advising, all across the board. Everyone that I've worked with and referred students to has always been really helpful and supportive.
So, Allie, for you, you've been in your role for almost a year, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah.
So, within this year, are there anything, or is there anything that maybe has surprised you, either about the university or your role?
That's a good question. I think in terms of things that have surprised me about Oregon State, I love that we have such a really great focus on research opportunities. I knew that we were a research university when I applied for the job, but just being able to see all of the different things that students are able to get involved in, whether that's, out at Hatfield, doing things with marine sciences, or really all across the state of Oregon is kind of our campus when it comes to research. And so being able to go out to research forests, other research centers across Oregon, even studying abroad. We have students in Antarctica right now. We have students on all seven continents. And so it's really cool to see all of the different opportunities for students to get involved in research. Because I think one of the common misconceptions when you hear about a research university is that that's for graduate students. It sounds great, but that's not for me. And so I think it's really important that we have such a big focus on undergraduate research because not all schools give that opportunity to their students. And I think being able to be involved in research at the undergraduate level, whether you're getting ready for graduate school or your career, or there's just things that interest you that you want to know more about, I think that's really important. And so it made me really happy to kind of discover throughout the course of this year just how many opportunities we have for our students.
Great, great. Do you have advice for prospective students before like for the college application process and how they can make that as successful and easy as possible for themselves?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that you just need to kind of broaden your scope a little bit. If you have your heart set on a particular school, try to apply to some other schools that are nearby that school. Or if you have your heart set on a particular major, try to apply to a variety of schools that are really good at that major. Because you may find, when you're visiting campuses, taking tours, talking to current students, you may surprise yourself and you might find that a campus that you weren't fully considering might be a perfect fit for you. And so I think just, trying to keep that open mind, applying to a variety of schools is really important. I know it's a really stressful time for students. Getting into college can be a really challenging process. There's definitely a lot of things, a lot of little boxes to check off. So I always just tell students, take it at your own pace. Don't try to do everything in one weekend. Don't try to do all of your applications all in one weekend. Start early. A lot of applications open in the summer, like in August. So kind of start before the school year gets going. Work on your application, bit by bit. You can try different essay prompts. You can talk to your counselors and your teachers about ideas for your essays, have them look at your essays, things like that. So just giving yourself enough time, whether you decide to apply early or apply for like a regular decision deadline, just making sure that you're giving yourself enough time to be successful.
Definitely. I think that's great advice. That's definitely when I'm working with students, I tell them something similar, but also not just for seniors, but sophomores and juniors, like be documenting your volunteer work, your jobs, your clubs and activities, because I often think that people will submit their application like, oh, I forgot I did that thing,
Yes.
which is great for us and especially in our holistic review process of applications.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. Sometimes when you sit down to fill out that application and it asks what activities you've done in high school, sometimes it's hard to remember everything you've done. So it's definitely a good idea to kind of keep a journal of all the different things that you've been doing and experiencing throughout high school so that once it's
Mhm.
time to kind of sit down and get that application going, you have something to work from.
Yeah. So, Allie, coming back to you and kind of like your life and personal story. So you were born and raised where?
In Ohio. So
Ohio.
yes, I'm a Midwest girl. I grew up in a small town outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. And then did you do high school and college in Ohio?
I did high school and college. I grew up in like the same small town for the first 18 years of my life, and then decided I wanted to get out, explore something new. So I went to George Mason University, which is in Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. Originally, I thought I wanted to be a political journalist, and so I thought that going to college in DC would be a good fit. But it actually ended up being a good fit just in general to kind of explore new things, meet new people. We had students from all 50 states and over 120 countries.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really awesome. I got to learn a lot of things from my classmates as well as my professors, which was really valuable to me, growing up in a small town where everyone kind of looked like me. So it was really neat to meet people from places I had never been before. So really got to kind of expand my worldview. Decided that, political journalism maybe wasn't the right fit for me, but really happy to have found a home in higher education.
Well, and then as you said at the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned you became a student ambassador at the
Mhm.
school, so that kind of gave you an idea of
Yeah,
working in admissions in a way.
yeah, definitely. I think that students, myself included, sometimes don't realize that, oh, these are actually professional jobs. Like someone has to work at the school to make it run, to make it function. And I remember it just kind of hitting me out of nowhere. I was like, wait a second, I could turn this into a job. There are people who do this as a job, which was really exciting to me because that was not something I had considered before. I don't think there's a lot of, students in high school thinking, I want to work at a college because they haven't experienced it yet. But
Right, right.
but being on campus, kind of experiencing that energy and realizing that you can be part of facilitating that, that was really exciting for me.
So then from Ohio to Virginia, and
Mhm.
then how'd you get to California?
Great question. So I thought, I've lived on the East Coast. Let's go see what the West Coast is about. Heard some good things. I had a few friends who lived out in San Diego and had always told me how awesome it was. So I decided to come out, explore San Diego. Started working at San Diego State, like I said, initially in fundraising, which was very fun. But, I think that I had always really wanted to work with students. So I worked on my master's degree in student affairs, so I could pursue a career in admissions, which was something I'd always wanted to do since college. And then, yeah, started at Oregon State, and now here we are.
Awesome. So, Allie, when I joined the podcast, my co-host Corey kind of did that fun segment called This or That,
Okay,
and I kind of want to do that with you.
sure.
So, I'm going to give you two items, and you have to choose between them. Okay.
Okay.
So, your first one for this or that: beachside resort or hillside cottage?
Hmm. I'm gonna go with the cottage since I live near the beach.
Good point. All right. TV series or movies?
That's a tough one. Depends on the day. This it really does. But I will say I've discovered I really like the limited series that they've been releasing, like on Netflix and things like that, where it's like 7 or 8 episodes. So it's kind of like one big long movie, but it's not as much of a commitment as like a 5 season TV show.
Oh, you found a loophole. Okay.
I did. I did.
So it's limited series.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a surprise third option, Craig.
There we go. All right. Trivia night or board game night?
Board game night. I like the idea of trivia, but I don't have a trivia brain. I don't remember all of those little facts and figures that would make me good at trivia, so I'm going to go with board games.
Do you have a board game that you'd recommend to our listeners? Or I
Ooh,
can, yeah.
yeah, definitely. So one of my favorites right now is called Parks. It's based on national parks. You get basically you kind of go along. You are getting little tokens along the way. You collect different resources and things like that, so that you can kind of buy national parks to keep in your collection. The design of the game is really beautiful. The little tokens are painted wood tokens. It actually started on Kickstarter, which I think a lot of games these days start there. And my best friend introduced me to that one. So I think the art is beautiful and the gameplay is really fun.
Awesome. You have a recommendation, listeners.
Yeah.
National parks. All right. Book or audiobook?
Definitely book. Again, I like the idea of an audiobook, but I find that I get distracted.
Do you have a book recommendation for the listeners?
A book recommendation. Ooh. My favorite book I read in 2023 was called Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. She's a British author. It's a mystery kind of thriller option. I won't give too much away, but it will draw you in from the first chapter.
Okay. Pancakes or waffles?
I'm a pancakes girl.
Coffee or tea?
Always coffee.
M&Ms or Kit Kats?
Ooh. Is it plain M&Ms or can I pick any kind?
I'll let you pick any kind.
Okay, then I'm gonna go with M&Ms because I think peanut butter M&Ms are the best.
Oh, I just had those that are so good. All right. This one I think is going to be hard because
Okay.
I know what your favorite animal is.
hmm
And then there's also our mascot, but Allie, beavers or otters?
It's a heartbreaker, Craig.
I know.
Uh, it really is. I think well, if it's Benny, I'm gonna have to go with Benny because I love Benny so
Benny's pretty
much.
great.
Benny is pretty great.
But if it wasn't Benny, then it
If
would
it
be,
wasn't Benny, then it would be others.
that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
So speaking of mascots, one of the new things that we're looking to do with our podcast is at the end of every episode, we'll be introducing OSU trivia. And Allie, since you are our first guest this season, you are going to receive the first trivia question. Are you ready
Okay,
for this?
I'm not sure, but we'll give it a shot.
Okay. So, what was the original mascot of OSU?
Hmm. It's hard to imagine life before Benny.
I know.
Um, it really is. I don't know, Craig. What was the
Our,
original mascot?
the original mascot was Jimmy the Coyote. Yes,
Interesting.
we had a mascot named Jimmy the Coyote in 1893. There's very little documentation, but maybe in our future episode with the library and the archive,
Yeah.
maybe they'll give us a little more information. But no, it's published on the internet,
Huh.
which may or may not be true, but it was Jimmy the Coyote.
Jimmy the Coyote. Who knew?
Who knew? So, Allie, is there anything else before we wrap up that you'd like to chat about with our listeners or share with them about OSU or OSU Cascades or just words of encouragement?
Yeah. I think we're in, that time of year when a lot of decisions have been coming out for students. And so I hope that, students are getting good news. And I know sometimes students aren't always getting the news that they want, but just know that there's so many options out there. Like I said at the beginning, definitely consider all of your options. Go tour different campuses. Go talk to current students at those campuses because you might find that a school you weren't really considering has everything that you want. So it's definitely, can be a stressful time of year. Also, keep applying for scholarships. There's so many scholarships at OSU. We have that Scholar Dollar system that students can use to apply for additional scholarships, and other universities have similar scholarship portals as well. So definitely make sure to keep applying for scholarships because you never know what kind of aid you might be able to receive. So some of my pro tips for this time of year.
Excellent pro tips. And Allie, before we depart, can I get a big, loud go Beavs?
Go Beavs!
Excellent. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in, and we hope you can join us on our next episode of Beaver Tracks. It will be a damn good time.